Forward on this. Here we go. First podcast of 2023. Richie Norton, we've wanted this to happen for a while. Thank you so much for being here. I've said it to you already, but I'm saying it now live on the podcast so that everyone thinks I'm a good bloke. Thank you so much for being on. As I said, I've known your girlfriend Tamara for a few years through Greece connections and things like that, and then I'd sort of spoken to her, and then so I'm stoked to finally make this happen. Thank you for being here, mate.
Pleasure to have me. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure to have you. Yeah, exactly. First of all, pleasure to have me. First of all, I gotta say, you have one of the most like relaxing, peaceful auras. And this is I'm trying to start a podcast with a compliment every time because I did it recently and it really paid off. But also I'm being very serious. Your like videos you do on Instagram and you're talking. You are the most peaceful talker I've ever heard in my life. I sound like a shrill pigeon when I try and do a peaceful video like that. So first of all, I want to say, thank you for that. It's always a nice thing to come up on my feed because I know it's going to chill me right out.
Lovely compliment. That's very, very kind of you. Yeah.
Can I suppose let's get straight into it. I know you have like a history as a rugby player initially, and doing that before. I mean, again, I said I didn't do much research. I did a little bit. Before injury kind of stopped that side of your career. Was this kind of relaxed demeanor you've got now? Were you always like that, or has that happened as you've become older and changed your lifestyle completely?
Great question, actually. When I come on podcasts, and I always like to think, well, let's maybe take things in a slightly different direction, and let's maybe just have a little think about. I also get asked these questions quite a lot, but I always think every time I get asked it, something else comes up that has allowed me to sort of be more truthful and be more honest, that I hope is more relatable. So first of all, thanks for having me. Honestly, I really appreciate you coming on, you having me on for a chat. It's always nice to talk and share stories. Hoping they do inspire and educate and maybe add some insight to help other people. And, one of the biggest things I had in my life that transformed my trajectory was actually hearing a story like this about someone that had overcome their challenges that I thought had it all figured out, but actually turns out they didn't at all. And I think that's one of my favorite ways to look at everybody. Everyone's like going through their life. I'm just going to create a little bit of separate dialogue here,
of course,
to hopefully position your answer, because a lot of people go on these paths and they have this vision of achieving this goal. They set these massive, goals, and they have big dreams they want to achieve, and that was all they could think about. It's all they wanted to do. And my mission was rugby. Literally, when I was at school, I didn't have many role models. I got in trouble a lot. I didn't feel very aligned with school, had a lot of teachers that really rubbed me up the wrong way. I got bullied, all this stuff that really didn't give me a great experience from an educational point of view. And luckily, rugby was my savior. It was my place to have an outlet. It was my place to blow off some steam, basically just hit a few people and not get in trouble for it. And when I realized I was actually okay at it, I was pretty good at rugby, and I got spotted quite early by some professional clubs. I thought, right, this is what I'm going to do now. But also, because I am quite good at rugby and I'm getting away with this, I'm still getting all this attention. I'm still going to go out and get on the piss.
Right.
I'm still going to go out and tear it up because I can, because I can, and I want to live my life and all this kind of mentality. And I went down a path that wasn't really the most ideal path for a professional rugby career, and had a few warnings, got myself in quite a lot of bother. And it was someone who actually pulled me aside and told me this story, and he was the chief firefighter at a fire service that I'd applied to go to the fire service. I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to go to the army. I thought that might be a bit too harsh. I'm going to go and be a firefighter just as a backup plan in case the rugby career doesn't pan out. But it was either one or the other. There was no other option. So a young lad, I'm about 15 at this age.
Right.
And obviously still plenty of time on the cards. But someone had pulled me aside and said, you're going to throw this all away if you're not careful. And this was someone who I thought hadn't even recognized me or noticed me or even respected me at all. And he told me a story about how he'd come through a very similar path, and he'd had a few troubles, and he decided to get his act together, and he built a really, incredible career. But he also got locked up twice, and got in a lot of trouble. Similar sort of path through school. And it was one of those stories that I think a lot of people sometimes need to pull themselves out of a very busy headspace or negative mindset or self-destructive, or they've been told they can't achieve anything, or they haven't had a very good run, and they haven't had a good father figure, or whatever it might be. And it just gives you a slightly different perspective and gives you some hope. And I've been sitting with this for quite a bit over the last few months. That's why it's fresh in my head, because I haven't often told this story. That it was probably at that turning point that it probably steered me down towards actually having a career in rugby, because I was about to throw it all away if it hadn't been for someone just saying, you've got some other options here. You just need to shift your mindset, and it's not all over, and you do have a lot going for you. You've just got to apply yourself and go out and give it a go. And it was such a turning point. And I feel there's a lot of people out there, younger lads now, well, especially younger lads, that haven't got this steer, or they're being influenced by the wrong energy, or social media is a big thing now. That wasn't an issue back then. It was in-person bullying rather than social media bullying and all this other stuff. But also, I just think we just need some better role models. And I always thought, right, well, I want to tell my truthful story, so I hopefully become maybe that role model to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's very well said. And further from what you said about social media as well, I think there's a huge problem there with role models as well. I mean, we're all too familiar with, the toxic masculinity scene everywhere, and Andrew Tate and all this stuff. And young men, like you said, often I think they do feel a bit misaligned with what everyone else is saying, and they're trying to find their own way. And they're like, I'm trying to be a big burly bloke, but I'm also actually inside, I'm not sure I like that. And actually, I do have this kind of sensitive side, and I am worried about things, but I'm not meant to be worried about things. So, you get this inner turmoil. And like you said, you then turn to, all right, well, I'll go out on the piss and just do that. And that will then inform me and become my personality. And that's what I'm known for. And, and not to necessarily use an example, but, Richie's a legend. He'll always come out for a pint and things like that. And actually, you're doing that to mask or to try and find your place in the world, when actually all you want to do is go and play rugby. And also, I suppose it's having like you said, you applied, you're like, oh, it's all right. If it doesn't work, I'll go be a fireman. So there's it automatically in your head. There's there's a safety net. It's all right. It'll be all right. I'll just go be a fireman. And that, whereas actually, throwing all the cards on the table, like you obviously did, but so many people don't have that turning point, that penny drop moment. And I suppose that's both a good thing about, today, things like podcasts and stuff like that. It's easier to find those stories than ever before, but also there's a lot of other bullshit, isn't there? Like I said, there's a lot of social media, and finding the wrong voice is hard. But I think, I don't know, it'd be good to hear what you say, because you're very active on social media as well. And I don't want the whole conversation to be dominated by this, but it is a very important topic. And I always say one thing with social media is people don't realize that they're in control of it. It's not in control of them. Like, you can completely tailor who you see. You can, of course, the algorithm these days is like, I'm going to show you stuff that I think you like, and it will show you, but you can control it. And there can be a healthy relationship fostered with it. And there are healthy things to come out of it. And I wonder, you can, speak to that with your experience with it.
So again, I'm going to give you a roundabout answer to just make sure we cover the
best kind
chain here.
Best kind.
People fully understand where I'm coming with this answer. Just to tap into the previous question that I avoided by answering it in a slightly different way. I have gone through quite a few turning points where at first I thought, this is it, it's my big break. It wasn't. I had to make a big change. And every time I had to make this shift, it was due to somebody intervening or spotting that something wasn't right, or it was a very close call. It was I like to think it was some universal power that was, knew I was destined for something better than what I was choosing. And a lot of those influences, why my, you know, to piece together the story like you just said, I haven't always been this grounded and I guess able to control my energy and being, I've put it down to a bit more self-awareness, but also doing the work. And I think a lot of people are looking for a fast track to have it all figured out, and are being influenced by lots of external factors that, you know, might be inspirational, might be educational, but are you being really aware of how it's affecting you, and is it making you feel happy? And a lot of people aren't asking that question. You know, I feel a lot of people are just rolling through the motions, very robotic, very automated, very short attention span, not giving anything real quality time to go to the depths of understanding if it's actually something that actually you want to do, and you're enjoying the experience. So, you know, when I was 16, got an opportunity to go and play for my county. I got the opportunity to go to England and all this promise. I thought, right, this is it. It's my big break. Why would I throw this all away? But I was dealing with a lot in my family life,
right,
that caused me to feel like rugby was it just didn't hold the same importance as me just wanting to have big blowouts and go out partying and stuff like that, because I felt like that was giving me more distraction. But I was lucky enough to get lots of airtime, lots of rugby opportunities. When it came to about 18 years old, this turning point, I actually got in a bit of trouble, and a firefighter, again, at the local fire service, had said, you know, rugby is your thing right now. The fire service will always be there. It wouldn't always be there. I don't think I would have got into the fire service because of my ability to sit still and do maths and everything else. You know, so yeah, it could have been a fallback plan, but it's unlikely I would have, you know, made the grade. You know, the reality of it, you know, and he said, you know, you can go and take the shot, go after your rugby, give it a good go. And it was literally a case, if I hadn't made the decision to go all in on my rugby, it was actually go to New Zealand and play rugby over there when I was 19 in the off season. And when I came back, my interview was with Sale. And I thought, Sale, when I'm about 20 years old, perfect academy, into professional. It was as it was going professional officially. I thought that was it. It's all laid out. Why would I not go and do it? I went to New Zealand, didn't come back. Well, I did, but not for a little while because I was having so much fun. And it was, if I hadn't gone and done that, where I went to New Zealand, wet between the ears, thinking I'd all figured out, and I got schooled on a daily basis. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I thought I was cocky. I thought I had everything. I thought I was a good rugby player. I got out there and I felt like a little child because I got literally hammered on a daily basis in a physical way, rugby wise. But it was the best thing that gave me discipline. It helped me understand the real meaning of like team spirit and camaraderie and like being a man and actually having to step up and have responsibility for yourself and your actions. And, you know, so as a 21-year-old, by the time I was there, my 21st birthday out there, and it was a few key people when I was over there that pulled me inside and said, you know, go and give it a good shot. Don't throw it away. And it was stuff I still carried with me. I still carry it with me today. And the whole idea of, you know, bringing back to your last question, I was still holding a lot of anger. As a bloke, we still didn't talk about our feelings. Mental health wasn't talked about back then. We're talking, you know, 20 years ago now.
Right.
Definitely a class as a veteran these days. You know, don't feel like it, I look like it. But I'm a success story because I turned it all around from it all being taken away from me. And we'll come to that. Because you can lose everything. And some people think that's the end. But it could just be the start of something else. And it was all meant to happen. And I've made peace with that now. It just happens that I've done that 3 or 4 times, and luckily I'm still here. But every time has made me a bit more self-aware. It's educated me. It's taught me some really valuable lessons. And it's allowed me to have insight into what other people struggle with, to hopefully now be a coach that can help people that where I needed help. So I'm just passing it on. So I think, you know, when it comes to, you know, social media and all these external factors, where we're influenced by our peers, we're looking at people doing great things and we want all of those things. We wonder why we don't have all those things. Unless you're dialed in with what your magic is and knowing you have a gift and doing what you really truly love to do and having values, you're going to get swept up in the madness of everyone wanting your attention, planting seeds in your energy. So I just think I'm very self-aware, and when I'm not right, I know where to go and know what to do to help myself back on track. And I think those tools, which we will come to, I hope, in a second, allow you to navigate life a little bit better, so you can start to make some more aligned decisions that will hopefully put you into a happier state of being, and then go on a really lovely path through life that might take lots of twists and turns, but at least you're kind of moving in a similar direction, or in the right kind of direction, that will give you all the gifts you need. And it doesn't have to make sense straight away.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell myself. So yeah, my last point on that, to hopefully cover what your question was, when opportunities come around to maybe change direction a little bit, don't ignore that, right? We hit obstacles. That's life. That's never going to end. We hit roadblocks. We face challenges. Life is going to throw some really tough stuff at you. That's never going to stop. So you either choose to just like lean into it and work your way through and see it as one of those obstacles, and embrace the grit, embrace the challenge of it, evolve, and then move on to the next thing. Or you choose to let it completely batter you, push you back, leave you stagnant, and then you sit in it and you dwell on it. And I think from that anger point of view, that last point, the frustration, the energy that wasn't very calm back then was harnessed because I let my barrier down. I took my guard down. I talked about having bad mental health. I talked about feeling depressed. I talked about like being lost. And I was amazed that loads of other people understood. And loads of guys were like, oh, me too. Talking like 20 odd years ago.
Wow.
Maybe more 15 years ago, before there was this big movement on the whole thing. And I promise you, that was probably the lifeline for me being here right now.
Wow. Powerful, mate. That's cool. Thank you for sharing. I'll show you this now. It's a bit silly. My mum made me a rock for Christmas one year, and it says, it's backwards, but it says one game at a time. She picked a rock up off the beach in Scotland where I grew up, and she wrote one game at a time. And that's my that's my like biggest motto as well. And it goes, I'm basically just going to butcher everything you've just said and repeat it, but to reinforce what you said, that's exactly what I've done with my life. And I attribute me being here to that also, of actually stop living too far ahead and worrying so much about, frankly, problems that I haven't even got to yet. It's like people worried about the specifics of a job when they've not even applied for it yet. They're so nervous about, how will I be able to commute to get to this job? It's like, well, you've not even applied for it yet. That's a problem to deal with, in the future. And Mark Manson said in his book, problems are never going to go away. All we can do is focus on making them smaller, and that's something. But this one game at a time is, for me, what used to be, I'd wake up and the feelings that I felt when I was in my worst state and depressed and everything, that would put me out for a week. It would ruin my whole week. Going to work, coming home, eating, everything was just beige and nothing. And then through being able to think of it as, right, let's get through this morning, and let's find one piece of joy in this morning, whether it's, someone went to the shop and got me a cup of tea, or someone, do you know what I mean? Someone said my t-shirt was nice, and anything, any tiny little, or even just someone was nice to you. Right, cool, one thing. And then, right, now let's get through the afternoon. Now let's get through the evening. And just by breaking things down into even smaller, I suppose, capsules of time, that was something that really helped me. And I feel like what you said really speaks to that as well. And it's really cool to have that reinforced by someone like yourself who believes in those kind of processes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think just to add to that as well, everyone is obviously on their own journey. We all come from slightly different backgrounds. We're influenced by lots of different things. But I like to simplify that we're all humans. well, some people aren't human, I guess, but there are a lot of humans out there that are, experiencing the same stresses, experience the same obstacles and challenges, maybe with slightly different names, but they're very similar. And people want to achieve, and the expectation of people, not just on themselves, but parents and their peers. And I think a lot of us are pushing in a direction or unnecessarily hard at things that aren't really where your magic should be directed. And I'm a big believer of, obviously, starting with health. Most people neglect their health to try and succeed professionally and build something, and then they spend money and time trying to fix their health because they've neglected it so much, and all the things that they built become irrelevant or not as important anymore. So I just like to think, always my anchor is, am I taking care of myself? What do I notice? What needs time? What have I neglected? Because I want to go and build this empire and leave a legacy and, inspire millions of people around the world. I've got to be double strong, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to carry that weight further and to raise my game. And anybody who's looking to achieve, anybody has a dream, anybody has, a vision to build something, to be proud of their achievements. Hopefully, no matter what they are, where on that scale they are, it's just nice to have purpose, isn't it? It's nice to wake up and be knowing you're working towards something that you can be proud of, that hopefully helps people along the way. And for all of these things to be possible, we all give energy to other people, whether it's personally, professionally. And me as a coach, I start off as a personal trainer. What did I see as a personal trainer? Loads of people doing things badly, poorly, just because they were either uneducated or they didn't have a clear goal on why they should be doing it. So they failed. They didn't keep up the program. So I thought, right, well, how do we delve deeper into understanding what it is that's stopping them from being fit, healthy, losing that weight, getting that muscle, being fit, healthy, stronger, whatever it might be. And it always came down to why they were doing it in the first place. And what was also always, well, a lot of the time, the issue, they didn't know why they were doing it. They just thought they had to do it. Yeah. But they didn't know why. It wasn't really something that really spoke to them. So if we want to be here for the rest of our lives and live long and, be healthy, run around with our grandkids, I'm determined to live way past 100 and be a badass, super fit granddad. I'm miles off that, obviously. Of course. But if that's going to be possible, so I want to rinse the shit out of life. Yeah. And be super proud of my efforts and what I've given. But if I'm going to do that, I've got to make sure my health is on point. Nothing is more important. Yeah. And it's not just a selfish reason, right? So that's another thing to mention, on that point. While I'm in this flow, trying to speak to kids, but I also like to speak to the older generations. It's not too late. No. It's just about how much you're going to prioritize to find it, as a ritual in some way, to do something for your health in some way every single day. And we've got plenty of opportunities. No one has no excuse. No one has an excuse. No one. Yeah. So I think that's just an important thing to, just giving you a bit more depth on that. I just think a lot of people are looking for that inspiration or looking for a reason, can't quite tap into it. Why am I not where I need to be? I think a lot of people need to delve deeper into why it is they are here and what it is they should be doing with their time, to find that real fire inside to go and do the best you can with the time that you have. And health is a great place to start.
Yeah, exactly. There's countless examples of kind of CEOs and executives and guys who have spent 40 years, working in an office and all this, and then they get a bit older and suddenly they have a big health problem and they go, I would give every penny I had to go back 30 years, all the millions and houses and everything they've got. And then I think that shows what truly is valuable. And it's important. And I like what you said. I like what you said as well. And it's something I kind of have latched onto quite a lot as well, is everyone's level of success is different. So it can be so easy, looking at in terms of physical health while we're on the subject, it can be so easy for someone who's, vastly out of shape or a bit older or perhaps, I don't know, unable to do certain things, and they look at like ripped guys, especially men, guys with like a six pack and all this, and they're like, right, that's what I want to do. And that's why I think they drop off, because that's so unattainable and unachievable. And often, if you've seen it on social media, it's edited and not real anyway. But if they, if you can set a level of success of like you said, I just want to be able to pick my grandkids up and run around with football with them, or I want to be able to just go for a walk on the beach with my family and not be completely out of breath when we get back to the car. Setting
Mm-hmm.
and I very much set my goals like that in terms of my mental health, but also I turned 30 a year and a half ago or so, and I've lived, I've done a lot of windsurfing and a lot of sport and things like that, but I've also done a lot of beer drinking and things like that. And I turned 30 a week after I turned 30, I tore my MCL, and I went, right, I'm going to start taking things a bit more seriously. So now I do an awful lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I've got very into that, and it's great. But I kind of find myself now setting these little physical goals as well. But I think it's because I've managed to cultivate that mindset. I don't walk into jiu-jitsu being like, I'm going to beat up a black belt today. Or I'm going to be stronger and fitter than everyone, because I know I'm not. I know I'm not. But if I can walk in and just do one thing where I leave and I'm like, yes, then again, it's one more day. And then I go back in the next day and I go, right, how do I build on that? So it's just these incremental gains. And as that happens, what I value as success, my bar of success just starts to creep up and up and up, to the point where I use windsurfing, for example. I look back at the level I was at 5 years ago to now, and I'm like, well, back then I was like, oh, I'm doing well. But now I look back and I'm like, well, it's rubbish. It's really interesting. I wonder if how do you go about, in terms of your coaching and things? Do you kind of help clients and things set these success goals, or do you let them kind of lead that conversation?
I think everyone's a little bit different. Well, I know everyone's a little bit different in terms of what's important to them.
Yeah.
I think everyone's got to find their own way to understand what it is that's important to them. The reason I put health at the top of that pyramid is, if you want to, I deal with a lot of people who are very successful, super wealthy and achieve lots of things, but their health's poor because they've sacrificed their health to get to where they are. Or they've definitely neglected it, or they've taken it for granted, whatever it is. And for them to, start to prioritize their health, as well as all of this, responsibility that they have. Or, I work with people who are very intelligent and very capable and going to do incredible things, but they haven't found their routine. They haven't found their healthy habits. They haven't really identified with a sport. They're not really even that sporty. So I think, to speak to everybody, you can take it any direction. I work with obviously professional athletes who are very capable and very sporty, and very easy to train them to go and train hard and do any program I give them. But what's going to allow them to look at it in a more holistic way? So rather than just smashing yourself every day in the gym, just because you've got to lift weights and you've got to mobilize your body and you've got to work on your breathing, be more mindful. It has to make sense. So I think, to speak to everybody, it's about connecting with the one that's the lowest hanging fruit for you, and the one that you enjoy the most, the one that gives you the feedback that, you practice it and you recognize you feel good.
Yeah.
And then that becomes the absolute foundation of everything else that grows from that point forwards, because you feel better. And then the byproduct is, I start to look better because I'm looking healthier. The byproduct with abs, of abs and muscles and all these other things, comes from just more consistency with the things that you're enjoying doing. So your body responds in a much better way. So if you're just going to punish yourself in the gym, beat yourself up and like smash yourself, it's often counterproductive, because your body's feeling so overstimulated that it actually is aging you, and it's probably causing more wear and tear. So think about how many people do that. I've been that person. I paid the price. Luckily, I rehabbed myself back. Hence why I teach it, because I know it works. So if you think about you're 30 years old, right? Okay, so in the next 10 years, a bit more wear and tear. You're not going to stop doing what you're doing. You're still very active, all these sports. You found jiu-jitsu, great for the headspace, very, mindful exercise, good for, great for your brain. but also it can beat your body up and you can get some, pretty hefty injuries. So you to be a better jiu-jitsu player, you have a steer now on making sure you're strong through lots of different ranges of motion. So you're super mobile, but you're also super strong. Your fascia, all your connective tissue is super strong. So rather than being massive and bulky, you're just like so dialed in with your core strength and your structural like range of motion. And then you're also super dynamic to be able to go and do some windsurfing and pull some aerials or whatever it is, because you're more of a hybrid athlete. So I guess where I'm staying with this is, once you tap into what it is that you enjoy or that you have an interest in, you have a steer then to start to do all the things that make that sport or that function, lead to a really positive outcome, the win. So when you generalize, it's planting some seeds in your brain here as well for longevity. We need to stay mobile. This applies to everybody. We just stretch things off. So our muscles and, ligaments, tendons, joints, all stay healthy. Our joints stay lubricated. That applies to absolutely everybody. We also need to have strong bodies. So we need to lift weight. We need to stress the muscles for them to stay strong. If we start to let them just drop off, they're going to get weak. We're going to get weak, look like old, crinkled, I don't want to offend everybody, but a lot of our grandparents are this way because they didn't have the education we have now.
Yeah.
We have all the tools. We have all the data. We can live longer. We can be healthier if we start to do the right practices. And they don't have to be massively hard work. They don't have to cost a lot. Most of them are free. You just have to dedicate a bit of time every day. And then watch your business grow. Watch your energy thrive. Watch your mood boost. I think a lot of people are steering themselves into a lot more stress without finding the balance. And I like to inform people about how some of those massive wins and those transformations are right there in front of you. You have to educate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can confess as well, like physical stress is unbelievable for like mental well-being. Do you know what I mean? I never feel more mentally relaxed and less anxious than when I've been beaten up for an hour and a half at jiu-jitsu, or gone out, a couple hours windsurfing and taking on the ocean. You come in, I come in, and I know you're a surfer as well, so I'm sure you have this feeling. Well, you definitely have this feeling, but you come off and you're like that. That's the most people say about cold shower, even just a cold shower, a cold plunge, things like that. Starting the day with that. That's the most stress. You're like stress receptors get used to that, and then suddenly when something bad happens at work, or even just little anxieties that you may have, suddenly they become like not a problem. Because again, much like your bar for success, your bar for, oh god, this is making me nervous, or this is triggering me, disappears, drops off as well. Or I've certainly found it's helped me an awful lot anyway.
Yeah, stress is a really important thing to take seriously. I think that's a lot of people talk about this now. It's the benefit of social media. It's out there in its like big force, but most people still don't recognize that they're chronically stressed, and they're just better at tolerating the stress rather than using it in short doses and taking control of it so it serves you rather than actually wears you down. And unfortunately, stress is probably one of the biggest killers right now because it feeds so many like illnesses.
Yeah.
Just not just physical illness, but obviously mental illness. And what you've mentioned there is, cold water exposure, training your body to be more resilient, to get your mindset sharp, to learn how to breathe, to stay calm in stressful situations. Simple tools that can literally save your life.
Yeah.
And slowing down the breathing, is one of the key things for me to stay calm, to turn up to this podcast and keep my shit together, and to not speak too quickly, not get too carried away. I have to keep checking in with myself. Get very easily overexcited, but composure.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is listening. If I'm super stimulated, I'm over breathing, I'm rushing. I can only do that for so long before my body's going to crash. And as we know, most people will be able to identify, anxiety, a low mood, poor sleep, busy mind, overstimulated adrenal system.
Yeah.
Just all of the signals are there, but we ignore them, and then it becomes a much bigger problem, and it starts to be a much deeper rooted issue, if not something that's chronically going to cause big problems, and then a lot harder to fix. So breath work, let's name some. So a cold shower, getting out in nature, switching off your technology, getting out and putting your bare feet in the grass. I see them all the time, but maybe it's my algorithm. It's so great to see lots more people understanding these simple things. Some people think it's been said to death, but unfortunately, people need reminding. If you're struggling, if you notice you're in a low vibration, if you know something needs to change, then you need to act on that. So you either, let's name some things that give some people some real tools. Talk about it. Get it off your chest. Get it off your mind. Breathe slowly, deeply, fully. Turn your technology off. Get offline. Leave your phone alone, right? Simple things. Go to bed earlier. Stop watching TV and be on your phone just before you go to bed. No wonder your mind's busy. Wake up. Move slow. Hydrate your body and your brain. Go for a walk. Give someone a hug. Chat to someone that you vibe off. The little things. All these are free. I think I mentioned all of them are free, and can be an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
The rest of your life. That's how much I believe in these things. So no 12-week transformation. No fancy boot camp. No fancy diet. Just start to really be more self-aware of how your body is feeding back to you key messages. It's in people's hands. It's just about you actioning them when you make sense of how that actually is, how you're responding to it, and then use that as fuel to actually make some huge shifts in your life, and you'll never regret it. You'll never regret working on yourself.
No, I completely agree, and this is what my regular listeners will know. Like everything you've just said, like I've either had conversations about or I've enacted into my own life, but mainly led by the first one you said, and that's talking. Talking's what saved my life. I was sat there at a table, looking at the sea in my flat on the south coast of England, being like, "Cool, I'm ready to check out now." And then my phone rang, and it was my mum, and she just called me at a moment, and I just it just came out. And then 2 days later, I was on a plane home to Scotland and just talked it out for like a week and a half. And that was the beginning of my road of like, cool, I'm going to start working on myself, And then something that also I've noticed that comes from working on yourself is, as a byproduct, you end up working on your relationship with your friends, partner, family as well, because you end up presenting your best self to them rather than oh, fuck off, I've not got time, I'm busy, I'm thinking about work and I want to watch the latest episode of this, or I've not got time, all this. Suddenly you can present your best self because you go, oh, well, I've got time, or there's no trains home tonight, but I'll work it out. Like I said, your stress levels are much lower. You tend to go with the flow a lot more. And I think people appreciate that, don't they? You said you keep saying the word magic, and I really like it. People finding their magic, or that's a really nice way of putting it. I suppose it's similar to the word vibe, but it's cliches are cliches for a reason. Your vibe attracts your tribe. If you're suddenly being friendly and seeming a lot happier, people are going to be more likely to go, oh, I quite like that guy. And then suddenly you start getting more compliments. People are being nice to you. And then it's like I never know what it's called. It's like the opposite of a vicious circle. A vicious circle is negative, but I don't know. What's the opposite word of vicious? I don't know. My brain's fried today. Yeah. But, you suddenly have this circle of I'm improving myself, and that improves this. And then because I've improved my relationship with, I don't know, my partner, suddenly I'm even better now. And then they're better. And it just keeps going on and on. Which is, yeah. And then as for breathing is my daily thing. Like you said, we're all so unaware of it. of breathing? And I know you know a lot more about it than I do. I'm very much a consumer and stuff, and I don't do the sort of Wim Hof things and things like that. But I suppose on a daily basis, if I start feeling I get anxious, my hands, I start to, people will be watching this on YouTube, but if you're not watching, I start to like sort of like go like that with my hands, and I start getting nervous. And the minute I realize I start doing that with my hands, I start slowing my breathing down, and then I stop. And it sort
Mhm.
of just brings, I feel my heart rate slow down. I feel myself. It's like someone pulls the plug out at the bottom of your brain, and all the nerves kind of just empty out, and it's like you start again with an empty sink. Maybe that's a weird metaphor, but that's how it feels to me. Um, yeah, which and this is something interesting, and maybe we can take it back to the conversation earlier, when you were talking about, you kind of started talking about your mental health when you were playing rugby, and suddenly all the other guys did as well. Were you, and as you said, they weren't having conversations about it, and I guess this sort of stuff didn't happen. Were you aware of any of these sort of techniques at the time? And
No.
if not, how? Well, no, yeah. So how did you? I know you said you've had a lot of kind of changes and things like that, but that's the one I'm especially interested. How did you get out of that one? What sort of techniques and things did you use moving forward from there?
Um, so yeah, the first answer was definitely not. There was no tools back then, so it was more just, it was still suck it up,
Yeah.
dig deep, keep pushing through it. You will be okay. Don't worry about it. You'll get through it, kind of mentality. Which is why a lot of people run quite close to feeling very lost and very lonely and confused. And it is a case of just someone, sort of, at least knowing someone's there and has your back, or someone you can talk to. The tools were communication and sharing a little bit more, but also the tools were training. I started training when I was like 14 years old. My mum took me to
Yeah.
a gym, actually, and she introduced me to weights, and I was like, oh, I love this, it's brilliant, and I really got into lifting weights at a young age. And it actually turned out to put me in a really good stead, because it made me a stronger rugby player, even
Mm-hmm.
though a lot of the time I was just doing it because it was keeping my head in a good place, with a little bit of vanity in there. Obviously, as a 16-year-old kid, I was feeling
Yeah, of
pretty good
course.
that I was buff,
Yeah,
and
yeah, of course.
in shape, and I had abs and all that sort of stuff. um and I mean, there's a few things where I remember I was at a low point, and the turning point was usually me getting pretty scared that I was not in the right headspace and talking very negatively to myself.
Mm.
So the internal dialogue wasn't very positive. And I remember it was a case that I kept having these conversations. I'd always talk myself out, because I realized I mattered to some people.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to have a really great family. I have a really great family, and also remembering all the people that have turned up for me, and that I wanted to make sure I did them proud, even if I couldn't muster up the confidence in myself and belief in myself. I thought, well, I'll turn up for someone else because I matter to them, and that was enough for me to sort of just keep stepping in. And any anger, any frustration was left on the rugby pitch, and that I think that honestly was like my therapy when I was playing.
Yeah.
But as I did get older, and as I did start to learn these tools, the tools came from people having insight into where I was and sharing little gems that I share now. The first one was actually surfing, would you believe it, and doing some yoga, and trying these exercises that were like movement
Yeah.
exercises that became capoeira. I know, going to a capoeira college, and I was like, these guys are badass. These ninja
Sick. Yeah, yeah.
like weapon. He's like straight out of like Street Fighter. And Brazilians that were badass surfers and would have barbecues on beaches. And this is when I was in Australia, because I had to take myself out of London because that was not serving me at all.
Right.
But it was gently this introduction by guys I looked up to, that I'd shared with, that took me under their wing, and kind of became my role models, that I thought, well, they're lads, they're blokes, they're cool, they're ripped, you know I want to be like them. And they're
Yeah.
talking about movement, they're talking about being like connected, and they're talking about being um, part of a group and like having a bond and a brotherhood and all these things. And it was done in a really cool way where it wasn't like macho. It wasn't too airy fairy, because the yoga stuff didn't really connect with me, the traditional stuff.
Yeah.
So then when I felt being in nature, I went to learn how to surf, got smashed, got my ass handed to me quite a few times. Very humbling. That was great.
Yeah.
But surfing yoga and doing some capoeira movement, which incorporated breath. And the byproduct was I felt good. All my injuries started to go away. And I started to feel better in my body, and actually start to really connect with my body in a very different way I'd never experienced before. And this was, I guess, the real key in my turning point with me almost throwing my whole life away, was knowing that the key to my success and my rebirth and this whatever came next was me making sure I was in the best physical health I possibly could, muster up, by trying all of these things on a regular basis and really immersing myself into it. And that became my education that allowed me to become a coach and a trainer and really know the struggles of getting to where you want to be. So I'm going to cap off this point, because it's come up for me. You mentioned magic. Not everyone's going to be a rugby player.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to have the ability to go and do all the things that we've talked about. Not everyone's even going to be bothered about it. They're not interested in it.
Yeah.
Going back to the point of we're all human beings, everyone listening to this podcast, we're all dealing with stress. We're all dealing with challenges. They're never going to go away. How do you prepare for those things in the best possible way, so when it happens, you've got some tools in your back pocket? And what is a really great way, even if you've not figured out your purpose, even if you got a bit lost, even if you feel like you've lost everything and you're starting all over again, what's a really good starting point? Obviously, focus on your health, and whatever that is, we all kind of know the truth. Are we overweight? Are we not eating very well? Are we not exercising? What's the first step towards working on your health? The second point is start with kindness. And that's not just kindness towards yourself. So be kind to yourself, eat something kind, train, move in a way that is kind to your health. But also, what a lovely way to be kind to others. That's your gift. Everybody's given right is to be a good person. Yeah. And what a lovely thing it is to know that you've helped someone by doing something selfishly and being polite and maybe being that person to them. And, I believe in karma. I believe in good things happen to good people. But, magic doesn't have to be a physical ability. It can just be you being a nice person.
Yeah.
Usually steers you down a really lovely path. When you can't find it in yourself, be kind to others and turn up for someone else. I promise that magic, rebounds. I really do think people could build something really special just of having those two things dialed in.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's a quote from the actor Jonah Hill, who talks a lot about mental health and things now. Actually, there's a great documentary, basically him just having a conversation with his therapist on Netflix recently called Stuts, that everybody should watch. But he said a quote. He's very into got very into surfing and skateboarding and things in the last few years, and he said, despite the fact that he isn't very good at it and perhaps doesn't look the part because he's slightly overweight and things like that, he said he had this realization, and men particularly struggle with feeling like they deserve a seat at the table, and they feel like they need to be really good at something. They need to feel like they need to bring it. So for me, it's something I've struggled with a lot. Is I feel like my kind of self-worth and things is tied to how good I am at windsurfing or something like that. And I need to go and sit at the table and go, I deserve to be here because I'm really good at windsurfing. And what Jonah Hill said is he realized actually all he needed to have the seat at the table was just to be a good dude, and just to be, and like you said, to pass kindness on to other people, to just be a nice guy. And that would earn him. And actually, people don't care how good you are at something or anything like that. As long as you're a nice person and you're friendly and you're passing on kindness, then you have a seat at the table. And that was something that really resonated with me. And I think hopefully it can resonate with a lot of other people. I think it's something that especially men struggle with because they feel they need to bring this success with them, and they need to be good at something, or be really, oh, he can have a seat at the table because he's got abs, or something like that. And that was something that really resonated with me, which completely speaks to what you've just said there as well.
Yep.
It's so kind of, I suppose you also answered a load of my other questions as well, Richie, which was, going from that rugby to carrying on that masculine energy that rugby has many connotations of, and then going into yoga and maybe not necessarily surfing, but breath work, all those things that perhaps don't have the same kind of masculine energy. But you answered it all perfectly there. And I suppose it's finding a group of people like that are doing it on their own terms, a group of guys, and actually kind of doing it together, and talking about it in their own way. I know I had a fleeting relationship with yoga. I did it for a few months, but then now that I've discovered jiu-jitsu, I've kind of got my own, I've got my own stretching routine I do before and after. So that kind of serves me to do it. Whereas, yeah, like you said, traditional yoga can perhaps alienate some men because they're thinking, oh no, it's not manly enough to do it, or things like that. But I'll honestly say you should do it, because it's great. It combines what we've said about breath work with what we've said about moving your body. And I know you're a big proponent of yoga now, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be unfair to say I was a true yogi, because I'm not really a traditional practitioner. And I think that's why I guess I speak to a lot of blokey blokes and rugby players,
Yeah.
because I am in good physical condition. I do take
Yeah.
care of myself, and I reap the rewards from that constant work on myself, because I realize it's the key to me being able to do all the things I want to do. And yoga has morphed for me into a playful practice. I don't often, where I live in Dorset now, there's not many yoga classes around here. I'm not connected to London as I used to be.
Right.
So my practice tends to be a lot of self-practice that is guided by the way I feel in that moment and on that day.
Nice.
And I find it gives me more creativity to tap into what it is I do need to work on. That's not just a part of my body that needs to stretch out, but also when I listen to my body and I slow my breathing down to align with the movement, you get this mindful connection to your movement. So you find you're stretching, you're mobilizing, you're flowing, you're breathing more consciously. So you're breathing deeper. So you really muster up this really beautiful, playful flow that is a full body scan, as well as giving your body a good MOT. But a lot of
Yeah.
my inspiration to be able to guide those practices has come from a traditional practice. So, you might not like yoga, you might not have found the right teacher yet. You might not have had a good experience. You might get frustrated that you can't do it.
Yeah.
But rather than just give up, it's more about, keep searching, even if it's just a doorway to the next level. It was a doorway for me, even though I'm a trained yoga teacher.
Yeah.
It was an education allowing me a doorway into being able to teach my way that I connected with, to pass that experience on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big believer in yoga being something most people need just for their headspace, because it gives them space, gives them room. And usually it's probably the most restorative way for you to start to heal yourself, repair yourself.
Mm.
And it is for everybody. It's something I'm going to return back to, I know, in a slightly deeper way when I've worked through this, this recent cycle of my training, because it's something that I don't think will ever leave me. But there's always room to grow and evolve, and I think that's the great thing about it. There's no ceiling on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deeper work.
Yeah. That's the same with the sports I do and things like that. There's always something new to try and learn and things like that. And in a way, it's kind of great, because you go, no matter how good I get or anything like that, you it's kind of humbling in a way, because you realize you're still a student. You can't ever complete it,
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a great feeling. Finally, one kind of big thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned it very briefly at the start, when we were talking about your, going into your coaching and things. And it's something I'm always interested in with people who do a lot of coaching and the kind of things that you do. as well as the kind of physical stuff, you do the mental things, and like you said it briefly, but how you take on a lot as a coach. How do you, what steps do you take to make sure that you're still keeping an eye on Richie while you're keeping an eye on all these other people that are,
Mhm.
paying you as a business to help them and sort them out and keep them at a good level? How do you go about that? Because it's always interesting
Um,
me.
yeah, well, I mean, just recently, perfect example. I've been through a lot in my personal life recently, and it's like, I'm still human. I'm still a person just trying to deal with what life throws at me.
Yeah.
I'm just choosing to use my time to hold space for others. And so, it's me passing on what I feel is my purpose and on my mission. So there's a lot of truth and authenticity and transparency in the way I teach and the way I coach, where I have dialogue with most of my clients and people that I work with that appreciate that some days are easier than others, some days are harder than others, and we're all in this together. So I'm
Yeah.
like I'm a friend as well as their coach, as well as their teacher.
Yeah.
So me as an authentic coach, rather than be scripted in how I teach and how I hope I continue to help people, it's sharing my experiences, it's sharing my education, it's sharing my insights. That's all I can honestly share. And to keep myself in good nick and to keep myself physically, mentally, and emotionally in the best possible place I can be is to be mindful of my energy, my mood, my vibration,
Mm.
but also the honesty that if I need to check out, my clients understand
Yeah.
because we have that mutual respect and we have that mutual, like, deep connection that we're in this together. It's a
Yeah.
two-way street. I benefit from them, they benefit from me. And it's like, this is the core of where I feel my magic is recharged because I get so much joy from being me with people that care, that put in the work.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I have such a great network of people that I get to work with. And I guess just to give you more ammunition on the practices, the yoga, the movement, the breath work, the regular daily practice, the meditation, not in all that order and on a daily
Yeah. Yeah. Of
basis, just
course.
like which practice is going to help me today. Maybe just get out and go and jump in a cold bath.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what I need today. Sort your shit out, Rich. I just need to go for a walk. I'm just going to go and hug the dog. I'm just going to get a good night's sleep and start fresh again. What is it that I need in that moment to allow me to turn up tomorrow and start fresh again?
Yeah.
Rather than whinge, rather than complain, I get angry, I get frustrated, I get wound up, but it doesn't stay with me for very long because I know that is the toxic energy that is going to ruin all the hard work and forget all the magic that I've been putting into the world.
Yeah.
So I might visit it for a moment, as we often do,
Yeah. Of
but we
course.
can either dwell on it, we can fester in it, we can complain, we can whinge, we can blame people, or we can do something about it.
Yeah.
And that is me on a daily basis. That is it. There's no magic secret. It is literally just navigating it one day at a time, remembering those key things,
Yeah. One game at a time.
one
Yeah.
game at a time.
One game at a time. Thanks, Mum, for the rock. Thanks, Mum, for the rock. I mean, that seems like a wonderful place to wrap up. Before we go, Richie, can you tell anyone listening where can they find out more about you and see what you're up to? I know you're doing events, you've got a book, things like that. If people want to get all things Richie Norton, where can they go?
Well, everything Richie Norton is. We've got a few websites, and the Strength Temple is still going strong. It was my original website, is now morphed into kind of a bit of everything. So it's thestrengthtemple.com. We also run in-person events, which are more about exploration, about physical performance and mental performance, and an all-round experience, which is adaptexplore.co.uk. Oh no, in fact, that's .com as well. Richie Norton _ social media, and yeah, the book, and I do have an app as well where I coach people, which is, they're both called Lift Your Vibe. So yeah, I highly recommend dropping in there, anybody that wants to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Make sure you at least give Richie a follow. But yeah, check out everything he's doing. You can also follow me on Instagram at the After Hours Lounge. If you do want to support the podcast, you can head to the link in my bio and you can buy me a beer. Although I don't really drink anymore, but you can buy me a Coke Zero. So yeah, you can do that. Or if you're strapped for cash, just give me a follow, share it, anything like that. It's free, takes 2 seconds, and it massively helps me out. So yeah, I'll thank you guys in advance for that. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Richie, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you guys have got something out of it. And yeah, we will see you for the next one.